The Shine on CX Show with Claire Boscq, illuminating the path to exceptional customer service.
Welcome to the Shine on CX Show. I'm Claire Boscq and I'm thrilled to be bringing you insight, stories and strategy that will illuminate the path to exceptional customer experience. Whether you're a CX pro, a business owner, a CEO, or just passionate about creating amazing customer journeys, this show is your go-to resource. We'll be diving into real-world example, expert advice, and the latest trend to help you boost your business and truly shine by elevating your customer experience. So let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shine on CX show. I am so excited to have today a very good friend. You have become a very good friend. I mean, we've met up, we've grown into connecting virtually, really, you and I, Craig, to meeting up in Dubai several times and connecting several times during, before and after my Dubai kind of trip. So today I have the pleasure to welcome Craig Lee on the Shine on CX show. Hello, Craig.
Hi, Claire, and it's super exciting to be doing something formally with you. So thank you. This is super exciting, and I love Shine On, and I love what you're doing in the CX space to keep the energy going.
Oh, thank you. It's been, I think it's people like you, Craig, which have opened up the path to CX, right? Tell us a little bit about your path to CX.
Oh gosh, how far back do you want to go? I was thinking about this the other day because there's so many, one of my mantras is joining the dots around sort of seemingly unrelated things. And only through doing some personal coaching, I realized I was told this was a superpower. I just thought it was common sense. So if I join the dots on where CX started for me, where the first thinking started, it might be something to do with the things I've done. I started life as a diplomat, and that process was super interesting because I started in South Africa at a time when South Africa wasn't really welcomed in many parts of the world. And I suddenly had to realize that we don't all see things from the same angle. And even though you're trying to be, strong emotionally and authentic and promoting a good side, sometimes that's a hard ask. And so I realized quite early on that finding ways to establish rapport and connect the dots between unrelated things and connect emotionally became really important. From that, I moved very quickly into a head of corporate comms function for a very large conglomerate across Southern Africa. And we had 27 subsidiaries, including travel and shipping and specialized logistics. And we also had some global brands part of our group, with like FedEx, Thomas Cook Travel, and Thomas Cook Forex. And my task as head of Corp Comms in a new function was to create one group out of these 27 subsidiaries. And the key reason for doing that was we realized that all the entities were known in their own entities, but they all had very many shared clients. But nobody exploited the fact that we actually had relationships with so many fantastic big organizations, but we didn't present ourselves as a single entity or help other entities within the group join the dots. So that got me into understanding clients' needs and really understanding how having your more segmentation around your top clients and who you were targeting to join the dots more on, and who you could get more business from, and what was the benefit to them of doing more with us, etc. That got me into the understanding of how groups work and how the client is always at the forefront of your reform and your changes. And again, that was all about establishing much deeper relationships with those companies, and then it became stickier for them to try and move because they were invested across multiple companies rather than just one that might be charging a little bit more. And when we did this, we were able to create 450 million in the first year of starting to act as a company, because we started giving each other business internally. So that was a huge lesson for me on collaboration, joining the dots and seeing your customers as a group. And then I was recruited into Emirates Airlines to head up marketing and strategy when this was 27 years ago, when Emirates was still quite small. And my role there was really to look at how we could grow the network, grow marketing, and move beyond the sort of a B2B distribution model with travel agents at that time, and focus more on an end consumer and a direct relationship. So that got me thinking around issues of volume and value. You know, what is valuable to the end consumer is very different to what would be valuable to a travel agent who scoops up volume business at a much cheaper price. So that got me into understanding that there was great value, commercial value, in being able to have a more direct relationship with the end consumer. And then finally, that got me into two other roles, which was, we then quickly realized the power of data, and we didn't have enough. So I headed up a CRM function for the Emirates group, which was Donato, ground handling, and the airline. And there I realized that between cargo clients and physical customers, very often they were the same people, but we treated them as completely different relationships. Wow. And they were buying equal space on board, you know, below in the hold and above, but we didn't have relationships with them like that. We managed them completely differently. And again, there was no emotional connection. They were either passengers or they were freight. And that very quickly morphed me into this whole concept of customer experience. In other words, a very brand-led emotional connection and rapport with people in order to join the external world of what the brand says it does to the internal world of how it really works. And the rest of my career has been spent trying to close the gap between how management thinks and how customers connect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, it was always that it's always totally made sense. And as soon as, you know, we'd start talking about customer service, which is very transactional, part of customer experience, and then as soon as you add the emotion side of it, it's totally it's another level, right?
Yeah.
It takes everything to another level. So you really kind of explored that emotional side of CX for many, many years.
For me, that is the holy grail.
Right.
Companies that can connect emotionally and get the transactions right win. I think often CX people talk about move from transaction to relationship, and that sometimes implies that transactions are not that important and relationships more important. Yeah. But for me, it's doing both exceptionally well.
Yeah. Well, and that's the trick, isn't it? I think in any business, is that consistency on that delivery of all those touch points and adding them all together and adding that emotional level to it. It's very tricky. And how do you keep consistency when, you know, you can think, okay, if I'm a small business, 4 or 5 employees, you know, we could try to do it, you know, at a certain level. But when you're Emirates and you've got thousands and thousands of people, how do you really kind of get that consistency throughout?
Yeah. But it's clear, it's interesting too, because not one customer is the same, you know, and this is where needs and wants come in. So today I need to go from Dubai to Paris as an airline example, but I want to go in business or first class because I have really important meetings. Tomorrow I might want to go to the Maldives with my family using miles. I'm still the same person, but my need is different on today's trip. And I think that's where many companies it's almost a one-size-fits-all because I've bought this product before, I'm a repeat buy. But no, my needs this time, I still want a bottle of water. I still want water, but now I want it delivered in a 5-gallon jar, and tomorrow I want it in a glass bottle in a restaurant. So what I want and what I need are slightly different each time. And we don't always have the sensitivity for that to understand what do I need to do today and how do I want it delivered. And that's where that emotional connection becomes really important.
So what are the kind of things that you do with the organization? Because I know, well, we talk about emotion right now, but it's the core of CX. I absolutely agree with that, the holy grail, you called it. But there's a lot you and I have had several conversations on values as well.
Yeah.
And company values. And I'm kind of totally in agreement with you that, again, any organization needs to have some values, and then everything comes out of the values, right?
Yeah. So for me, I'm less focused these days on the values because I think many values and value statements have been largely created in the marketing and brand space or are corporate values.
Okay.
And so corporate values are around ethics and how you run things and what matters inside the organization. Very often brand values are slightly different, and they talk more around how the brand needs to do things. But there's a big gap in the middle that nobody really seems to spend time on, and that is, what do we want customers to feel?
Yes.
So when I talk about what you might be talking about as values or brand values, I talk about as emotional indicators.
Okay.
What are the 3 things that, regardless of which channel, which touch points, what do I want my customers to feel when they walk away from this experience? And customers really want to feel valued, understood, safe, in control, and respected. And the experiences we design always ask for trust. You know, we want you to be loyal and we want you to be trust, and you need to be a bit patient with us because we don't always get it right. All of those things are earned emotionally, not logically.
Yes.
So emotional intentions are super important for me because we sort of understand it, but then we do stupid things by sending out tons of NPS surveys, unsolicited after every transaction. And even if I was emotionally engaged with your company, I'm now totally turned off. A new trend here is that when you go to a restaurant or anywhere where there's a service element, you get pushed with a little card saying, please give me a Google review because my management want me to do that. So it's almost become a internal personal KPI that if your client doesn't give you a review, you're not. So it's all about them. It's not about me. So I think when we can move customers' emotions super quickly if we're not intentional about how that's done. And I work with a lot of companies in the banking space, in the travel and transport space, in the telecom space, and in luxury brands globally, where I've used emotional intentions to radically change how people see the delivery of service, well beyond what the brand says it has to do or how pretty the merchandising needs to be laid out, but more around the behavioral interactions that employees need to have to deliver how you want me to feel every time I interrelate with you.
I think it's really interesting because I hear you, and we usually hear the word emotional intelligence, but you've said emotional intention, and that's just such a beautiful, beautiful word. Just to be able to be emotionally intentional.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because, CX happens. We have experiences, and those experiences can either be designed or they can happen by accident. And that's why I like to use the word intentions or indicators for emotions, because they are deliberately chosen, they're intentionally delivered, and they intentionally delivered anywhere across any touch point by anybody. So how you deliver a sense, let's say an emotional indicator might be a sense of family. That's what you want your customers to feel when they work with you. How's that translated linguistically across multiple countries? How's that translated on the phone? How do you deliver that in a store environment? And all of us can do that interculturally. We don't need to be trained in a scripted way to say buongiorno because I'm an Italian brand and I'm in Shanghai and I'm speaking to people who speak, Cantonese or Mandarin. It makes no sense for us to communicate and say buongiorno to each other. But some brands would make that part of the brand value or the way the brand is delivered. But if we use emotional intentions and indicators, we know that whatever we do, that's how we should try and help customers feel. And it's very deliberate.
Tell me, how do you work with an organization to actually, because there's a lot of exercises with value and how do we define our values, but if we take the emotional intentions as our core and how we're going to drive our organization, what would be an exercise that you would do with the organization to actually define those emotional intentions?
Great question, because it's surprisingly, it's intimidating for many organizations to start that way because people have this negative reaction in business to the idea of the word emotion. So as soon as you say emotions, they think you're going to get all soft and fluffy with them. And so I've done this with the wealth management divisions of international banks, and you can imagine head of compliance with suit and tie and saying, "We're going to do what?" but eventually, eventually, I mean, I'll give you an example of that. But eventually, that individual was probably the biggest convert. So what I tend to do is I tend to do this over in two phases. One is a multi-departmental workshop, which I use a Laforus method for, which is basically using paintings, pictures, objects, etc., in very quick succession, asking questions about, what the company's like for the customer. What do you definitely not want the company to look like for a customer? What works for the customer? What gets in the way of delivering to a customer? And we just use pictures to do that. And it's amazing how across multiple departments, people just open up because they choose a picture and they say, I chose this picture because this shows really grid lines. We're quite cold. We're quite boxy. We don't really talk to each other. Bang, bang. So you get tons of corporate background very quickly, and then you work it towards more and more customer type questions, and then you end up saying, and what are the three things you want your customers to feel? And you get a disparate group of, we want them to feel happy, or we want them to feel this, and you push them a little bit more. And then what I do as a second phase is I have a series of executive interviews where I do the same sort of thing but one-on-one, and then we also end up with what do you want your customers to feel? Well, we've got brand values. No, those tell me what your brand has to do, but I certainly don't feel that when I'm dealing with you. So what do you want your customers to feel? And as soon as you can get that alignment at the C-suite, that they get it, okay, so we need to be able to engage emotionally. So I'll give you an example. I did this with a luxury high-end brand in Italy, and they had a sales problem. They weren't selling enough. So I said, all right, give me 7 pilot stores around the world, because if you want to sell more, you've got to stop selling. And I had a very Italian response. What do you mean you want? How do we sell more by
I can
stop
just
selling?
imagine.
Yeah.
You can't see the fingers, but the fingers
Yeah,
are
you
up.
can. The fingers are up. Anyway, with to their credit, they went with the process, and it was an 8-month process to basically train and align store managers and regional managers to deliver emotionally. But what we did with them is we got the execs into a room, we got the different departments into a room, we came up with 3 emotional intentions. We want our customers to have a sense of family. The brand was an incredibly bright, vivacious, colorful, musical type of brand. So they wanted to have a sense of, they wanted to be electrified and entertained as a feeling they wanted their customers to have. And the third one is they wanted their customers to feel powerfully desirable. Now, no one in the brand team and no one else in the business had ever thought like that before. So we said, okay, great, let's wrap these now, and let's go and turn these into how you would help me as a customer in your Shanghai store or your LA store or your New York store, London or Paris, feel like that. And it was super powerful because suddenly it wasn't about what the merchandising looked like, although that had to be right. It was, how do I engage enough with everybody coming through the door with no bias, no understanding of why I was there or what I wanted to do, so that if I left and had bought nothing, I would at least feel one or more of those things. And suddenly you were able to unpack all of that into tangible behaviors, into how specific KPIs would help drive some of those things. And one of the important ones was this idea of powerfully desirable, because it meant that when you were suggesting something for somebody to wear, or when they spotted something for the first time, if they were to try it on, if they were to look at themselves in the mirror, would they feel powerfully desirable? And what could the store assistant do to help them feel that, or suggest something else? And the long and short of that, it was highly successful. And I can give you later on, I'll give you some stats if we've got time as to how things change. But we use emotional intentions to be very, very specific about what do we need people to feel at any stage of the transaction. And we know that if you can connect emotionally, you move away from transaction immediately. And you've got to find ways of bringing that emotion to pass, basically. And we don't get it right all the time, and that's fine. And that's where I use brand a lot, because brand is neutral. And we can say, when we do these type of things, we make the brand. But when we do these type of things, we break the brand. And it was very interesting using that language, because suddenly back office, front office joins up, because now we all succeed or we all fail. When you don't respond fast enough by email, we break the brand. And it's not about you, it's about that part of the business. Or when this and this and this happens on the floor and we're only measuring KPIs, you get a very transactional response. And I don't even connect with the customer because he or she doesn't look like they're going to buy a handbag today.
Right.
Whereas if we know that what we've got to help customers feel are these 3 things, what can I do personally to bring one or two of those emotions to life? And if we bring those emotions to life, the customer's more likely to connect with us than walk into the store, feel like a victim and leave.
Right. My head is spinning with ideas on what you're saying, because with my mystery shopping hat on, when we started 15 years ago and I started, doing the mystery shopping, which was very transactional, and we were really kind of measuring those KPIs, and we were always training the shoppers to say, you're not to tell, your emotions, you really are there to tell the story, what
Absolutely.
happened. Yeah. And now with that change, the emotion is such a part of it. You need to be able to measure it and actually be able to let the shoppers to say, this is how I felt when I was in that organization. And now we can just really kind of transform the way we're behaving with our customers because
Yeah.
we are able to actually connect on that emotional level. It's incredible.
And we connect as people to people. So where we're becoming very inhuman in many of the other elements, this is the one chance we have of putting the human experience back into the center
Mm.
and getting the rest right.
Brilliant. So you mentioned a couple of figures. Where were that? Give me some figures.
Well, yeah,
Because
for the
but again, I think people think that, emotion is all, like you said, fluffy and, we're going to start hugging each other. And it's not measurable, but actually it is so measurable, right?
it's super measurable, and how people interpret it. So I'm just using your mystery shopping. We call it customer experience evaluation, but it's mystery shopping. You go in and you see. So take the, a sense of family as one of the feelings. When this mystery shopper went into a store in LA, they said the way that the staff worked with each other created for me a sense of family.
Brilliant.
And that was totally opposite to the way the business intended you to feel part of the family. But
Right.
they were able to create the same emotional intention.
Brilliant.
And that's what I find really useful. So the figures there were quite interesting because we then spent, sort of 7 months every 15 days with the store manager and every month with the regional manager. Because like any behavior, these become words on a piece of paper if you don't measure them, watch them, coach them, etc. And of those 7 stores I mentioned, six of those stores increased their profitability from 25 to 74%
Wow.
in
Wow.
8 months.
Wow.
So by not focusing on sales, but focusing on the customers to be interested enough to buy, changed the whole dynamic. And
Wow.
employees felt a lot more comfortable with that approach. And they were almost challenged to say, okay, how am I going to create rapport with this person who's just walked into the store? How am I going to give them a sense that we're family? How can I give them a sense and excite them about the brand? And how can I get them to try on one thing, even if they never buy it, to make them feel powerfully desirable? And it
Amazing.
became a really fun thing for them to do.
Yeah. And it's only 3 things. That's the thing. I think
Absolutely.
sometimes employees feel
Absolutely.
overwhelmed because they've got so much to do and they've got
Yeah.
all this to do. And then so suddenly you kind of simplify everything and you
Yeah.
just say, all we want you to do is make them feel like this, and like that.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it just suddenly just have that open carte blanche almost to be able to do whatever you want as long as you can get one of those feelings in. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing, the backstory to that, Claire, is as soon as you start getting that right, businesses suddenly realize that they don't know how to manage and support that. So the starting point, as you and I have discussed before, what's the leadership experience got to be that drives the employee experience to deliver that customer experience? And so often we only start with the CX without anything being else being in place. So we were able to take these emotional intentions and challenge leadership to say, okay, so how can you use those same 3 things with your employee experience for them to feel and understand to deliver your customer experience? And so there's no disconnect. It's the same language being used right across the board. Some staff very quickly said, we don't feel powerfully desirable because we've got to wear black clothes and we've got all this color around us. And the management said, okay, well, we take 1 item a day and you wear that. And so they were modeling the goods and feeling good about themselves.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so it works in a number of different ways. And I think the importance there, you mentioned emotional intelligence earlier, but I think the importance here is that leaders with high emotional intelligence are create cultures where empathy and accountability sit together. And then if your frontline staff have a higher emotional intelligence, then they can read the cues from people and adapt real time without, signature experiences and scripted things. So in a sense, it's also quite empowering because they can be themselves because they know what they have to deliver emotionally, and they still have to do all the other stuff. And so I think emotional intelligence with 2 or 3 emotional indicators really helps what we call connection before correction. It's a very powerful way to de-escalate problems and delight customers. We use that word flippantly. And the type of tool we use there is also super simple.
Yeah.
Don't think 4 times about it. Ask yourself 4 questions. Is this good for the customer? Is this good for the business? Is this good for the brand? And is it good for me? And if it is, and it ticks those boxes, just do it.
Yeah. Win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, it's just, when you think about it, it's so simple, but yet it's not done at that level. So Craig, actually, how do people connect with you if they want to do more of that, actually, and for you to help them to be able to put in place a bit more emotional intentions in their businesses?
Well, it's fairly easy. I'm on LinkedIn at Craig Lee at LinkedIn, and all through the company Kinetic Consulting.
Lovely.
And that I'd love to have a chat. And again, more than happy to help CX practitioners in any way possible. We've paid a lot of school fees to learn the mistakes we've made, and there are often easier routes to things. I think the one little caution I would say, just in sort of concluding here, is that we do overcomplicate CX by getting too cerebral about it, and we forget that acquisition, for example, is one part of the story. But the key part of the story is retention. And there seems to be so much focus on trying to get new clients that we don't spend any time on keeping the ones that we've got. And that goes against the whole thing. So care and empathy for me is the new commercial currency.
Definitely.
And if we can get that right, we all make more money. And so anybody I can help or have a chat to about that, more than happy to do that. And thanks again for inviting me on the podcast.
No, brilliant. Thank you very much for being here all the way from Dubai. I'm just super happy to see you, and I'm looking forward for our path to meet again. But definitely Craig is just an amazing person. So if you felt connected, actually emotionally connected with our conversation today, get in touch with Craig or get in touch with me if you can't find him, and then I'll put you in touch for sure. Thank you so much for your time, Craig, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks, Claire. Lovely to be here.
Bye for now.
For more on creating exceptional customer service for your business, head to claireboscq.com. Listen to more episodes of The Shine on CX Show, wherever you get your podcasts. The Shine on CX Show.